Hello and welcome to Assisted Reading. We are going to read Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit and this assisted reading. So let's just dive right into the preface where he starts. Preface on scientific cognition. So this is one of the aim of the books, right? How do we achieve the standpoint of science and what can actually count as scientific Wissen, Cognition, Erkenntnis, scientific Erkenntnis in German. So, and let's just read it. It is customary to preface a work with an explanation of the author's aim, why he wrote the book, and the relationship in which he believes it to stand to other earlier or contemporary treatises on the same subject. Now, it sounds a bit complicated, but it's very simple what he says. Normally, when we start a book, we say, well, what is that all about? Let me give you a summary. Let me tell you what is the aim of the book. And let's also explain to you how it stands in relation to my fellow philosophers, to my colleagues, or who is ever doing philosophy at the moment. I say philosophy, but that may not be true for philosophy. For whatever might appropriately be said about philosophy in a preface, say a historical statement of the main drift and the point of view, the general content and result, a string of random assertions and assurances about truth, none of this can be accepted as the way in which to expound philosophical truth. So, okay, if we try to do that in philosophy, right, and we say, okay, what are the main drifts right now? What are the main points of view? Use what is the general content that we want to talk about? What are the results that we are going to get? We cannot do that in philosophy, especially when it comes down to truth. And the question is why, right? Also, since philosophy moves essentially in the element of universality, which includes within itself the particular, it might seem that here, more than in any of the other sciences, the subject matter itself and even in its complete nature were expressed in the aim and the final results, the execution being by contrast really the unessential factor. So, okay, two things here. On the one hand, we have the result, and on the other hand, we have the execution, like how we get there. So let's say we want to deliver a proof, then we can say, here's the claim we prove, and here are the steps of how we get there. Now, if I tell you, let's say, the truth is the whole, and that is the truth, or God exists, you may want to know why. And the statement in philosophy really becomes meaningful only if you know the why. That means if you really go through the philosophical method and really explore the content and then prove it. So this is basically what he says. So it is true that philosophy is somehow in the element of universality, like the most general ideas and so on that have no empirical content, but at the same time, it is also found in the concrete empirical phenomena. I think this is what he's saying here. And so it's also a wrong assumption that the empirical realm, like the world that surrounds us, is really unimportant for philosophy. That's not the case. On the other hand, in the ordinary view of anatomy, and I have some trouble here with interpreting what he means by anatomy, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure how to read that. For instance, say the knowledge of the parts of the body regarded as inanimate, we are quite sure that we do not as yet possess the subject matter itself, the content of the science, but must in addition exert ourselves to know the particulars. So I think what he says here is, okay, we usually assume that philosophy is just in universality, but if we look at anatomy, it's clear we have to deal with particulars. We have to look at particulars. And even if we know one particular, we need to know at more and aggregate more information, right? Further, in the case of such an aggregate of information, which has no right to bear the name of science, an opening talk about aim and other such generalities is usually conducted in the same historical and uncomprehending way in which the content itself, these nerves, muscles, etc., is spoken of. So, okay, then we say, okay, why do we do all of that? Because we want to know human beings, and our goal is to really explain this muscle group or this. It's all unalive. It's not really related, and Hegel would not call that science. So I think what he says is we can have the universal without the particulars, right? The content that we want to prove, something metaphysical like God exists or something. But if we don't look at the same time in the empirical world and connect it, it's meaningless. On the other hand, if we just look at the particulars, like in anatomy, we just look at nerves and muscles and don't ask what is the overall goal, what is the whole that leads to, we are also not doing science. In the case of philosophy, on the other hand, this would give rise to the incongruity that along with the employment of such a method, its inability to grasp the truth would also be demonstrated. So, okay, now we come to philosophy and we ask, okay, what does that all mean? Well, so the major word here is, I believe, incongruity. And it means that if we look at the particulars and only at the particulars, then we would only demonstrate its inability to grasp the whole, the truth as a whole. So what that means, I believe, is that there is a disconnection between universals and particulars, and we somehow have to relate them. We still have some more time, but I think we leave it here with paragraph 1. So I think to give an overall interpretation of this, I think Hegel wants to tell us that the truth is the whole. That's a very famous claim. We also say holistic. We never satisfy our desire for knowledge with particulars, with, for example, the explanation of one phenomenon through another phenomenon, let's say through causality, for example. We say, for example, this billiard ball has caused this billiard ball to go in that direction. I don't know, this atom bomb does not apply causality, obviously, but we usually in science have a causal explanation that is worth very much. But this is not where we are leading to in philosophy. In philosophy, we really try to grasp the whole, but not in a merely empty speculation, but connected to the way of how we really experience. And this is also my interpretation of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, which is often very much criticized because I read Hegel as really relating us to the empirical world. I think he is a philosopher of the empirical, which is often highly debated. But I think this is how we should read Hegel. Anyway, if this helps you, let me know in the comments. If you want to know something else, please ask in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I tried to get through the whole Phenomenology of Spirit towards the end of my life. It's one of the most difficult works in philosophy. But if this helps you, then you can subscribe to the channel. We will read more works like this. Thank you very much.